Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from commenter_in_chief. AITA for wanting to cut ties with my rude and entitled daughters manipulated by their mother? I have been in a contentious divorce for almost longer than I was married. It never ends. I have 2 daughters, 20 and 12. The elder as an adult is free to associate with whom she wants since she has aged out of the custody battle. She spent most of her time from 11 to 18 years old in a 50-50 joint custody arrangement. For her sister, 12, her mother has ferociously, and continues to this day, sought to punish me by limiting my contact with her. Although she too spent a period of time in joint custody, in my jurisdiction, a requisite of joint custody is that the parents can collaborate. When my ex learned this, she immediately cut all communications with me and fought me on every issue, so that at the moment she lives with her mother and I see her once every 2 weeks. I have financially supported both kids beyond what is required by law, because the mother refuses to pay her part. And with all of the other matters of controversy and the slow court system, we haven't even yet arrived at the financials. Theoretically, I should be reimbursed for the overpaid child support once a decision is reached, especially with the eldest, whom I am supporting while she gets her education. She attended an excellent university in the town, where my GF lives with her son, 2 hours between my town and hers. Housing is also extremely expensive in that town, like top 10 worldwide. And with a decade-long legal battle, my credit is ruined, so I had my daughter move in with the GF, and she pays a small rent for the room. She has constantly complained about that living arrangement. The GF's son is too loud, they cook foods she doesn't like, etc., etc. She wanted her cats with her when she went to school, but my GF can't have them, so my daughter's BF took them in. She basically spends all her time at the BF, and leaves her messy, almost hazmat bedroom locked with a key. So it's a constant reminder to my GF that she no longer has a guest room. To top it off, my daughter doesn't ever acknowledge the GF or her son. She sneaks in and out at all hours, does her laundry after midnight, so half the time no one ever sees her. Earlier this year, one of her cats died, and it was devastating. For the whole family, she was old and well loved. She had a terminal cancer, and to keep my daughter from having a complete mental breakdown, I paid thousands for treatments to keep the cat alive, long enough for my daughter to come to terms with reality and let her go. My ex, in the meantime, flipped out when I asked her to contribute to the vet bills, getting angry at my daughter for it vicariously, and abandoning her when she was in the middle of a visit and helping her mourn. My daughter then fails every single one of her first-year university exams and drops out unceremoniously. She gets a job at a bar for a while, then they fire her because she's not friendly enough to customers. Now she works in retail, but still expects me to pay her the stipend I provide her every month. She is angry that I have her pay the minimal contribution to my GF for the room, since she doesn't stay in it after all. And in her mind, I only do that to make it look like I have more expenses, so I don't have to pay more child support to her mom for her sister. Now her BF has moved out of his parents' home and into his own little apartment, where he can't keep pets. So now the surviving cat is with my ex. My daughter travels back to our city to visit the cat and my ex, but never visits me. When I'm with my GF, she is never around, and I'm reminded of her absence every time I walk to the kitchen and see her big foreboding locked door. She complains we don't hang out like we used to, but makes absolutely zero effort to communicate with me. If she texts me ever, it's because she needs something. When I text her, all she ever answer is, okay, yeah, and a series of dumb emoji like the thumbs up or the shrug. Recently, I was having a real down moment with a chronic health issue she knows I have. I asked her to come hang out with me so we could watch movies, maybe play video games like the old days. She's a gamer girl, and I'm her very uncool, uncoordinated, bad at gaming dad. She told me she couldn't come visit because her sister was with me, and if her mom found out she came down to visit me, she would get mad. I'm not just broke, but in ever-increasing debt. I don't have anything for myself because I give everything to my kids, and their deadbeat mom doesn't give her part. She's not a homemaker, but a PhD, just in case you were wondering. Now to the point. I'm exhausted. I work full-time, but I wear rags that are falling apart. I just got a new pair of glasses for myself, since my 5-year-old ones were so far off prescription, they pretty useless anyway. Progressively worsening eyesight is part of my chronic health issue. Just today, she was here in town with her mom, but didn't say anything to me. I found out when she was already en route back to her BF. We celebrate Thanksgiving on Saturday, because that's when I'll see her sister, but she asked to leave early so she can go visit her cat and stay at her mum's. Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday, and I'm hosting 20 people, but really all I care about is my kids, because it's been our tradition forever. Finally, I wanted to plan a surprise for both my kids, since I have the little one this year for Christmas. There's a musical they are both obsessed with, and I want to fly out with them to see it. When I told my daughter of my plans, I didn't want to tell her the details because it's a great Christmas surprise. She said, "I've been promising my mom forever I would go there with her, so I can't go with you. It would just stress me out." The little one is starting to have similar attitudes. After all this time, I'm finally to the point I don't care anymore. I don't like either one of my daughters. They are entirely self-absorbed, rude and entitled. They disrespect my GF. They ignore me. I'm ready to just quit my job and leave the country to live in poverty alone, just so no courts can touch my wallet. Can't have anything if I don't give anything. And because it hurts so badly to see my daughters growing up to be terrible people, I would rather never see them again than have to bear to see them act like that. AITA TL daughter. My 20-year-old daughter is an entitled. Am I instead the asshole for dreaming of running away and cutting ties so I can at least live for me once? OP is not an AH for going no contact with her entitled daughters. He is suffering from complex family dynamics, and her daughters took advantage of him. OP's ex-wife manipulates the situation by limiting OP's communication with his daughters. OP's reaction is 100% justified. So I would rate OP's ex-wife 2 out of 5, OP's daughters 1.5, and OP gets nothing. Let's now move on to the next story from past-house-2508. AITA for being disgusted and just saying okay when my fiance broke up with me. I, 28F, had been with my fiance, Alex 34, since 2020. We met at a friend's party, hit it off, and have had been together ever since. He finished his doctorate in economics just last year. Since then, he has been working at the uni. I have my master's in media sciences and decided to start working instead of going for a PhD. Okay, so the problem is that Alex broke up with me last Monday. It was literally so surreal and honestly just weird. For the past few months, he'd been acting strange. He was making demands and then dropping them immediately. A few examples. He told me we were going to paint our walls back from dark green to white. When I asked why, he just said, "For f***'s sake, forget it," and never brought it up again, even when I asked. Another time, he came home and got mad because I was sitting on the couch with my head covered in a blanket. I had cramps. He was upset because I was just sitting there watching Netflix. Mind you, the house was spotless. When I tried to talk about it, he said, "Forget it, it's not a big deal." This kind of thing became common. Every time I tried to communicate, tried to figure out what was going on, whether it was something I did or maybe he was just stressed at work, he would just say everything was fine, but he was clearly seething with rage. I didn't even have to do anything. He would find something to complain about. The apartment, clothes, me, work, etc. So I gave him space, which apparently was also wrong. I told him I was going to help my parents with repairs for a few days, and somehow that was also wrong because he wanted to renovate the apartment too. Then, on Monday, I got a text saying we needed to talk. I knew what was coming, and after the last few months, I had made peace with it. When I came home, he was sitting on the couch. He didn't even wait for me to take off my jacket before saying, "I want to break up." Then the verbal diarrhea started. He told me he resented me, first, because I didn't pursue my academic career further, even though I was capable, and he didn't want to upset me at the time. Then, when I started making more money, since he didn't make much as a PhD student, he felt like I should have the last word financially, and he hated it. Mind you, I never said anything like, "It's my money, so I have the final say." That's a rule he imposed on himself, and he hated it. He said he hated our paint scheme, the couch, and even our crockpot. Then, he told me he had rejected a better PhD program to stay here because I had already started my job by the time he got the acceptance letters. Only, he never told me he had even applied overseas. He said a few months ago he checked in with a friend who's in that program, saw how they were thriving, and decided I ruined his life. He said I had too much control over his life and that he hated the idea that I could just decide not to pay for things and him over. I honestly don't even know what that means. He also said he hated that all his friends loved me and didn't let him vent about me. Then he said again, "I'm done." I was floored. I had already made peace with the idea that we were ending, and it hurt. But after that rant, I was just disgusted. I looked at him, probably with a disgusted expression, and said, "Okay." He lost it. He said this is exactly what he meant, that it was horrible. We had been together for 4 years, and all I had to say was okay to our breakup? I just asked if he wanted to stay here while he figured out where to go. He said, "Typical, of course you're holding the apartment over me," and started ranting again. So I just left. I told my parents, and they're also confused. My dad suggested I reach out to our landlord and explain the situation to see what options I have. I can keep paying the rent, no problem myself. He covered the utilities and some subscriptions. Just to reiterate, I never had a problem with this. I saw that he was chasing his dream, and that was more important to me than a 50-by-50 financial split. I make good money, and am happy at my job. I never saw it as slaving away. I always had the mentality that my money was our money, because we were building a life together. Of course, I had my own savings and fun money, but I honestly never cared. As long as I felt he was working towards something and wasn't taking advantage of me, I was fine with it. More than fine. Alex is still mad. He's going between texting me like a robot about the logistics of the split to being a seething, complaining about everything. I'm not even hurt anymore. I just feel nauseated by him at this point. I don't know. Should I have reacted differently? Update. To start, Alex moved out pretty quickly after the breakup. He has been staying with a friend, and we sorted out everything like mail, subscriptions, and the lease. I'm also in the process of adopting a cat. Her name is Luna, but I have been thinking about changing it since my family already has 2 pets named Luna, a moon, and Kamar. She is still at her foster home for now, but I have visited her a few times, and I already adore her. She is a scrappy little tabby who follows her foster mom around like a shadow, and I can't wait for her to move in during the first week of December. I've already gotten her bowls, toys, and a bed by the window ready. Now on to what happened. Last week, I was out showing someone around the city. He is the son of my parents' friends who recently moved here for work. My parents asked me to help him get familiar with the area, so I agreed. It was nothing special, just walking around, grabbing coffee, and pointing out useful spots in the city. Apparently, Alex saw us. I didn't even realize he was there, but later that night, I started getting texts from an unknown number. I guess he got a new number since I blocked his old one. The texts were just weird. He accused me of flaunting my new relationship in public, said I must have been seeing this guy before we broke up, and told me that everything he suspected about me was true. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to entertain his paranoia. The messages kept coming though. They went from angry to desperate, with him saying things like, "At least admit you were lying to me," and "Was anything about us even real?" It was exhausting, and honestly a little scary to see how quickly he spiraled. For the record, this guy isn't my boyfriend. He's not even someone I'm interested in. He's just the son of family friends who needed help settling into the city. The whole thing was completely innocent, but Alex has twisted it into some kind of betrayal in his head. What gets me is how little Alex seems to know me. I'm not the type of person to jump into a relationship so soon after everything that happened. Even if I were, it wouldn't be any of his business. We are done. I've made that clear. After I didn't respond to his texts, Alex started calling. I didn't pick up, but the voicemails were a mix of angry rants and desperate pleas. I ended up blocking his new number too. It feels ridiculous that I have to keep doing this, but I guess this is where we are now. Then this weekend, I went out to a bar with my friends. A few hours in, guess who walked in? Alex. I don't know if it was a coincidence or if he followed me there, but as soon as he spotted me, he came straight over. He was clearly upset, asking to talk, and I told him no. My friend stepped in, and thankfully, he left without causing a scene, but it ruined my night. It felt like I couldn't escape him, no matter where I went or what I did. When I got home later that night, I was completely drained. I had just started to relax when I heard a knock on my door. It was Alex, standing there in tears. He started crying, saying he missed me, that he didn't understand why I was doing this to him, and that he didn't know how to move on. It was like all the anger from earlier had been replaced with this desperate sadness. I didn't let him in. I told him he needed to leave, and if he didn't, I would call someone to make him leave. He begged me to listen, but I just closed the door. I spent the rest of the night feeling shaken, and honestly a little scared. I don't know what he's going through. I wrote his best friend about the situation, but the plea of talking to him. He said he would. I'm seriously considering getting a new phone number, and possibly even talking to someone about how to handle this legally, if it keeps happening. It feels unfair that I have to go to these lengths just to have some peace, but I don't see another option. Final update. Thanks for the concern and support I've received. I'm fine. Really. A lot of people suggested things like getting a restraining order, but I just want to clarify that it's not as simple as walking into an office and asking for one. The process involves proving there's an immediate danger to your safety, providing evidence like texts, calls, or witnesses, and then attending court to get approval. It's not something you can do lightly or without solid proof. And no, I'm obviously not getting a gun. I've also seen people diagnosing Alex with various mental health issues, and I want to ask everyone to stop. Yes, something is clearly wrong, but I'm not a doctor, and neither are most of you. It's not fair or helpful to label him with something like bipolar disorder or anything else without real expertise. For what it's worth, I don't actually feel like I'm in danger. In the past month, these were the only 3 incidents that happened. I don't think he's actively stalking me so much as he just knew my patterns. The bar we were at is my favorite spot, and it was a party of one of my closest friends, so it makes sense that he might have guessed I'd be there. When he showed up at my apartment, he knows what time I usually get home. The city tour is the only thing that might have been more intentional, but it could also have been a coincidence that triggered everything. Anyway, this is the end of it. Yesterday, Alex came over with his mom and one of his friends. At first, I didn't want to let him in, but he promised me that this would be the last time I ever saw him. I agreed, mostly because his mom and friend were there, and I figured it would be more awkward to argue on my doorstep. When we sat down, Alex admitted that he was going through a crisis. He told me he was mad at me, but he didn't know why. He said he doesn't like me, that I annoy him, but that he weirdly still loves me, which is why he went crazy when he saw me with someone else. He assured me there wasn't anyone else on his end either. He said he felt like he was going insane. He talked about how he feels judged for being older and not being able to give me the life he thinks I deserve. He said he hates his colleagues, hates his job, hates everything right now, and that everyone and everything annoys him. He told me he feels old and like he should want kids at this point in his life, but he doesn't, and that thought terrifies him. He said he just wants to be alone and not talk to anyone for a while. I didn't say much. I mostly just nodded because I didn't know what to say. After he was done, he told me he was leaving. He's on some kind of mental health leave from work, and he said he's leaving the country on Sunday. He's going to South America to spend time in nature and find himself. He thanked me for everything and said he was sorry for how he acted. Then he just got up, grabbed the few things he had left at my place, and walked out. His mom was inconsolable. She kept apologizing to me over and over, saying how embarrassed she was by his behavior. I told her it was okay and that she didn't need to apologize for him. She cried a lot, and his friend ended up driving her home after Alex left. I don't really know how I feel about all of this. Part of me is relieved that it's over. Part of me feels sad for him because he clearly doesn't know how to deal with everything he's feeling. Mostly, though, I just feel tired. I'm glad he's taking steps to figure himself out, but it's not my responsibility anymore. OP is not an AH for breaking up with her boyfriend because his behavior was so disrespectful and humiliating, which cannot be justified. As for scores, I would rate OP's boyfriend 3.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Butthole-Umbrella. AITA. If I skip my Sil's child-free wedding because I can't find adequate childcare? My husband and I have been turning this dilemma over for months, and we decided it might be time to put it to the internet with all the facts laid out. My SEL is getting married in a destination wedding roughly 800 miles from where we live. She is doing this over a 4-day event where she rented a massive lodge for all 30 guests to stay and hang out together the entire time. She has requested no children at the wedding, and specifically spoke to my husband and I that this also applies to our 3-year-old daughter, who is the only child in the entire family. The issue is that we live near my husband's family, and they are all attending the wedding, so no one is available to babysit our daughter during that time. Further, my family live over 600 miles away in the opposite direction of the wedding. We do have friends locally we would trust, but one is just about to move away, and the other will have just given birth, so they're not able to help. We don't trust a babysitter for 4 days, and we don't have a nanny or anything like that. His entire family is very upset about the prospect of just my husband attending and me staying home with our daughter, to the point where they're bringing it up every couple of weeks and heavily pressuring us to figure something out. They really want us to send her to my family. My biggest concern with that is I only trust 2 members of my family to watch my daughter for an extended period of time. my 2 oldest sisters, and my aunt. My dad, who had full custody of me, was highly neglectful, and to this day doesn't know how to take care of a child. My mom never grew up and couldn't provide a safe environment away from drunk strangers, smoking, and drugs. I moved out of state the second I turned 18 for a reason. My aunt just took in her own grandchild and her 90-yo mother, so she can't handle another toddler. Of my sisters, one has toddler twins and is a school teacher. As the wedding is during the school year, she's not available for the whole time since she'll be juggling her own 2 kids and work. And my other sister is a NICU nurse with a really irregular schedule. This is on top of any expenses it would take to actually get my daughter to my hometown, get to the wedding, and back to my hometown, and then back home. As a last resort, we offered to find our own accommodation at the wedding destination and find a local babysitter for the actual wedding events, also all at our own expense, but she rejected that idea wholly. She said she wants everyone at the lodge, and it won't feel like the whole family is there if we stay off-site. She also implied that having our daughter even that close is in violation of her preferences, since she doesn't want a child over at the lodge ever at all. So this is the part where I might be the We could technically fly in a friend we do trust to stay at our house with our daughter for the duration of the wedding, and she's even offered to do so. My hesitation here, though, is that she has 2 kids of her own, one of whom is very high needs, and I'm technically her manager at work, and worry that creates a conflict of interest. So I told her no, but didn't tell my SIL about this option. But at this point, I'm mostly just fed up. Even if my friend flew up, I'd be anxious the whole time about my daughter. I don't want to be away from her for 4 days, leaving her in the care of someone who is basically a stranger when I'm so far away. I'm not preventing my husband from going. He will definitely attend no matter what. It's his sister. But I've told them I'll be staying home. Everyone is very upset with us. My husband is upset because he feels in the middle. AITA? Should I just suck it up and fly out my friend? Should I send her to my family anyway, despite my concerns, and just make them sort it out? Should I continue to search for alternative options? Adding that I'm also just a little upset about my daughter being specifically excluded, because this is the second time his family has done that to her. They all surprised my BIL in the Bahamas this past summer, and she was excluded from that event too. I stayed home with her then also. She is the only child in the family in over 25 years, but it's hurtful that they consider family events so important, but don't include the whole family. I add this because this is definitely contributing to how far I'm willing to bend over for them, and this might be contributing to status. OP is not an AH, and her concerns are valid. Her SIL is an AH for unreasonable demands. Honestly speaking, the very idea of child-free wedding is nonsense, I think. So, for me, OP-SIL is an AH for trying to exclude children from her wedding, and I would rate her 1 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye-bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.